The Google Pixel Fold is going to be one of the most important releases of the year, especially in the foldable market. And there are a few reasons why. Hi guys, my name is Luigi and welcome back to another video. Today I wanted to talk about the Google Pixel Fold and why it's going to be one of the most important releases of the year in the foldable market, but also it's going to be an important release for Google and the potential new series that we're going to see of Google making foldable phones from now into the future. So over the last few months, we've had a lot of rumors and a lot of leaks from Google itself and from Twitter of the Google Pixel Fold or Google working on a Pixel foldable phone, which obviously has made a lot of people raise some eyebrows, and it's definitely made some people excited and some people a bit doubtful about Google making a foldable. But a couple of weeks ago at the Google I/O, the Google Pixel Fold got announced, so now we actually have a device that we know how it's going to look like, we know how it looks, we know the price, we know a lot of the specs, but we don't really know how it works fully at the moment as a fully device. So let's discuss first the release date of this phone. So obviously this phone got announced a couple of weeks back in the middle of May at the Google I/O event, and you can go on the Google website right now and reserve that phone, but you won't be receiving that phone until late June, maybe beginning of July. So apparently it says to be starting shipping around June, but if you reserve your phone, you probably won't be getting it on the first couple of weeks of June. I would expect you to be getting the Google Pixel Fold between end of June and beginning of July, and then from there on. But I want to start first of all with the design of the Google Pixel Fold. I really love the design of the Google Pixel Fold. I think the overall built and the overall kind of like sizes when it's closed and when it's fully opened up, they look very comfortable to hold on your hand. Again, I don't really have any experience with it. I don't have any hands-on with the Google Pixel Fold, but by the looks of all the videos and compared to something like the Galaxy Fold, it seems a bit more comfortable to hold with one hand, especially when closed. So now you obviously have a 5.78-inch display on the outside, which is a bit kind of obviously a lot smaller than most phones, but it's a lot easier to use with one hand. And the aspect ratio is almost Oppo Find N2-esque kind of look like, so it's more like a passport type of shape, so it's not as tall as the Galaxy Fold 4 or as the Galaxy Fold lineup, but it's also not like incredibly short. So I feel like that 5.78-inch display on the outside is a perfect size on the outside that you can use it with one hand, but still big enough that you can do most of your tasks on the outside. But once you open the Pixel Fold, then you get greeted with this 7.6-inch OLED display, which I forgot to mention, the outer screen is also OLED display. So 7.6-inch is basically the same size as the Galaxy Fold and as the Oppo Find N2. So it's pretty much, I feel like that's going to be the standard of being somewhere between 7 to 8 inches on the inner screen, and you're probably going to start seeing somewhere between 5 to 6 inches on the outer screen, maybe a little bit bigger, maybe 7 inches on the outer screen. Then you get greeted with this big screen, but the things that a lot of people have been saying about the inner screen is the bars or the bezels on the screen. I don't think they look terrible, at least they're symmetrical. Obviously you got some pretty big chin and forehead on the phone, so you have a fairly thick bezel at the top and a fairly thick bezel at the bottom, but at least all 4 bezels, so the ones at the bottom, top and the sides, they're all symmetrical. So at least you don't have that difference between, like, maybe the sides are a little bit thinner than the tops. So at least I think by all the videos that I've seen and the images on Google, this bezels look pretty similar. You can definitely see the hinges at the top and bottom. So apparently Google has made this decision to pretty much show you the hinges so the phone is able to fully close, because I believe with some of the Galaxy Folds in the past and maybe the latest Galaxy Fold, they're not able to fully close flat, so there's always like a little bit of a gap. With the Google Pixel Fold, you're able to close the phone fully flat, and there's no gap in between. There's no kind of like gaps of air or anything that can maybe squeeze in between the 2 screens on the inside. So that's kind of good. I definitely like the design of the Google Pixel phone. They definitely try and made it as close to an actual Pixel as possible in the terms of design, so it looks part of the series of Pixel phones. So they didn't kind of like go for a different camera setup, so then different kind of like layouts, so they can make it look like the Pixel phones. So at least now we're probably going to start having a Pixel 7, Pixel 7 Pro, and a Pixel Fold, and they all look pretty similar when it comes to it. Obviously one of them will fold and one of them will have higher specs. But now let's get into the actual specs of this phone and what to expect or what we're going to see on this phone. So it's expected to have the latest up to now of G2 sensor from Google, which is the Pixel 7 and Pixel 7 Pro are currently using. So at the moment, obviously that still is the latest chip, but still 10 months old. In probably a couple months time, we'll have the release of the latest Pixel phones, which we're probably going to see the latest chipset, which is probably the G3 at this point, probably, because then we're going to see the Pixel Fold, which is the most expensive Google phone there is in the market right now, or that's ever been, with the generation prior to the latest chip. So you won't have the latest chip anymore, which that's something else for another time, and I don't know how that's going to work out. But in terms of specs, this phone is definitely packed up with specs. The screens, as previously mentioned, the outer screen is 5.78 inches, the inner screen is 7.6 inches, and they're both OLEDs, and they both have 120 Hz of refresh rate. It has a Google G2 chipset, has 12 gigs of RAM, it has an option for 256 or 512 gigs of storage. You get a 48 megapixel main camera, then you get a 10 megapixel ultra wide and a 10 megapixel telephoto camera on the outside, and then you have a 9.5 megapixel selfie camera, which is on the outer screen. It'll be capable of 4K recording up to 60 frames per second. It has a big battery, which is the biggest battery that we've seen on foldables, which is 4831 milliamp hour in the battery, and it also has wireless charging, which I think is quite big. But apart from all the amazing specs that this Google Pixel Fold will have and has, I feel like the biggest win or potential lose for Google when it comes to this Fold and gets into people's hand to be fully reviewed and to be fully used outside, it's going to be the overall experience with the software. So over the last few years, Samsung and Google have been working really close together to be able to create a software experience with Android that is suitable and that fits the foldable market. Samsung has been using something that's called the Android 12L, which stands for large, which basically is an Android build for the foldable market, or it's built for Samsung in this case, to be able to use the foldable capabilities to its fullest. So have apps that are built for the Android 12 large, which then fits around the whole device. So then it can be used when it's fully closed with the outer screen, and can be used when it's fully open with all its features and kind of like extra bits here and there for it to make sense when it's fully opened up. So we are really expecting Google to be really good when it comes to the software with a Google Pixel Fold, to make it seem seamless, actually, to make it seem like they actually care about the usability of the phone, and to make it really comfortable to use with not many problems, whether you're using it fully closed or whether you're using it fully opened up as a normal foldable. So that's where I think it's going to be a big break or make for Google when it comes to the Fold, at least for this first year, is to make sure that the Android version they're using for this year's Fold and obviously the upcoming upgrades, they will be suited and basically tailor-made for the foldable device to have a great foldable experience. Last but not really least is going to be the price, and this is where I think Google has gone a little too far and too much over the top. The price is starting at $1,799 or 1,749 British pounds, which is incredibly steep. You do get, if you reserve the Google Pixel Fold now, you can get a free Google Pixel Watch or a Pixel Watch that is worth up to £350, which again, let's say that brings the price down of your Google Pixel to $1,500. But again, it's still a very expensive phone if you don't get the Pixel Watch. And again, it's expensive because it's a foldable. So obviously you have technically a foldable screen. You have technically two screens now instead of just one. Again, it's very steep, and I do really think that's going to make it incredibly hard for people to get the Pixel Fold. In terms of prices, the Galaxy Fold still sells for that price when it's first launched, but obviously they're on 4th generation, so that'll be more of a proof of concept. I think for the first generation, Google Pixel Fold is really expensive, but again, it's not a cheap phone to make, I'm guessing. But yeah, the price is definitely steep, and for people that are going to buy this phone, for a first generation foldable, it's going to be tough to kind of buy that phone without some sort of doubt. Because again, it's a first generation, you don't know how it's really going to fully work until you get it on your hands, which I hope it really works pretty well because the phones have been amazing. I love all my Pixel phones that I've owned in the past and that I've reviewed have been absolutely amazing. So I really hope the Pixel Fold lives up to the expectations, and I really hope it does get better from there on. I know foldable phones will be expensive probably from now to the end of days, but I do hope at some point some manufacturers will try and bring the prices of foldable phones down, not just of flip phones but of foldable phones as well. So I know they're probably not going to get anywhere near being less than $1,000 a pound, but maybe bring them closer to some of the flagship phones like we see on Samsung S23 Ultra or the iPhone 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max. I'm really rooting for Google to do really well with the launch of the Google Pixel Fold and to really improve on foldable experiences. And obviously the more foldables we see in the market, then that's going to bring the prices down. That's also going to mean that we're not going to have just one company making foldables, and we're going to see more innovations when it comes to foldables. It'll be interesting to see how it all kind of lays out at the end of this year once all the foldables have been announced, especially with all the ones that have already been announced and the ones that's probably yet to be announced. We might see a Galaxy Fold 5 coming up this year. It's coming to that time of the year where we see the Galaxy Fold and Flip 5 drop at the same time, which is kind of around June, July. So it'll be fun to see how the Google Pixel Fold stacks against the Galaxy Fold 4 and how it will stack against the Galaxy Fold 5 and other foldables. So it'll be really interesting to see. If you're planning on buying or reserving your Google Pixel Fold, let me know in the comments below. I'm definitely staying away from it this year just because it's a first generation and because I have better tech to buy to review and to play around with. But I'll definitely be keeping an eye out to maybe December. So maybe when it goes into if there's some sort of good deal on foldables by then, I might get it and try it out and then return it, but we shall see. But that is all from me today, guys. If you like this video, just drop a like, drop a comment, subscribe to the channel, share with all your friends. If you find this video useful, let me know in the comments below. But apart from that, I'll see you guys on the very next one. See you later.